Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 19th episode of the 9th series of the Temple of Surf, the podcast. Today with us is the surf photographer Tom Woods. We discuss with him about surf photography, surf, surfers, surfboards, and much more. Hello, welcome to the show. Where are you today?
I am at home on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, Australia.
How is the surf these days in Australia? I guess it's summertime, so it's great, supposed to be, right?
It hasn't been the best over the last couple of weeks, but we're coming into our swell season. So in Queensland, we get a lot of cyclone swells that come out of the east. And so hopefully it's going to improve over the next few months. So normally January to March, April is our best time. So looking forward to that.
Okay, that's cool. Looking forward as well. At least we will see a better, beautiful picture, that's for sure. And so today we're going to talk about many things, of course, surf photography. But the first question that I have for you is the one that I ask at the beginning to everyone. In your opinion, what is the most important thing in surf?
For me, the most important thing in surfing or in surf is, I think, the feeling that you bring back or the energy that you bring back from the ocean once you've been out there. So I hear a lot of the times people say that surfers are selfish by nature, and I don't agree with that at all. I think that either consciously or unconsciously, a lot of the time, the surfers, they go out into an amazing place with amazing energy, and then they bring that back onto the land. And if you're consciously doing that, or you're consciously harnessing it while you're out there and bringing it back, I think that's one of the most important things you can do. So your surfing is not just selfish. It can affect the lives of others. And I think that's why a lot of surfers are magnetic to not only other surfers, but they're very magnetic to non-surfers. And it's not measurable. You can't measure it or do any stats on it. But I think it's just a feeling that just comes back onto land from surfers, for sure. So yeah. I reckon that's the coolest thing.
What we all bring back to land, I think, is just only positive vibes, unless it's like we're getting affected by somebody in the lineup that ruins our day. But that's part of the game, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's just about being conscious and just being, you're going to have days where you don't get the best waves, or the waves aren't the best, or you might even have an altercation with someone. But I think, just the appreciation of being able to do something just like surfing, which, it's just for fun. So even if the waves are bad, you're connecting with the energy and connecting with nature. So try and consciously bring that back onto land and affect the world in a positive way.
Thank you. And so for you, actually, I don't want to ask you when you started, because this is the classical question, but I'm interested in surfboards. So what was your first proper surfboard, like the one maybe you bought or is being gifted to you? And by any chance, do you still have it?
I don't still have my first surfboard, but the first surfboard I got was an 80s thruster, and it was a Genesis board, which is it's a label that is in South Australia. So I grew up just near Adelaide, and in South Australia, they had a surfboard factory down south, and I got it secondhand, and it was a really good board to actually learn on. But I quickly swapped it because it was the coming in of the thrusters, not so much like thrusters, but the banana boards, the really thin potato chips that only Kelly Slater could surf. And I quickly swapped over to that, and I shouldn't have. I should have stayed on that 80s thruster for much longer, because it would have. I would have got many more waves and probably learned a lot quicker and better. And but I passed it on, and then struggled on the paper thin rocket outboards for a long time. So I wish I kept it even for another couple of years, let alone till now. But I think it would have been a pretty good board right now.
Oh, really? Okay, but you pass it on to somebody you don't know, or you didn't know, or?
I've got a feeling I passed it on to someone, because I was sort of semi-involved with the surf club there too, and there was a girl that was starting to surf, and I think I actually passed it on or sold it to her, so she got the benefit of it.
Okay, good. At least we hope that board, did continue to do its purpose, right, and to bring stock to beginners, right, and then
sure,
yeah, exactly. And with photography, how the passion started? What was your first camera?
Yeah, the passion started with surfing magazines, I think, or surfing got me into photography, I should say. I remember I don't even know where I was, but I came across a Surfing World magazine, and I knew about surfing, but I'd never really done it. I was about 13 or 14, and I was just looking at these pictures, and they just had such an effect on me that I thought, man, I've got to get out there and try surfing. So I lived in a place where there wasn't much surf near where I lived. About a half an hour to an hour away, there was plenty of surf, but so I was a little bit inaccessible for a 13, 14-year-old. So spent the next 2 years just, every now and then getting out there. But yeah, that got me into so the photos got me into surfing, and then later on when I got right into surfing, I wanted to start taking photos of the things that I was seeing out there while I was surfing, and then possibly having an effect on someone else with my photography. Yeah, sorry, what was the question? Like, I got mixed up in surfing and photography. Then was it when I started surfing? Or
I guess that
I might have to take two on that one. Sorry, yeah.
No. How did you start? And
Yeah.
And I guess mission accomplished at the end of the day. I think you were able to, with your photography, to bring stock to people, right? Because look.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, I mean, those surfing pictures had such an effect on me, and photography. I saw a way how powerful photography was. So I wanted to start learning how to use a camera as well. My mum had a old manual Ricoh camera with a 50mm lens, and it was all manual focus, manual exposure, and everything like that. And I slowly started playing around with that, and then eventually got my own autofocus Pentax camera when I was around about 18, I think. 18, 19, and learnt the craft from there.
Yeah, but actually, that period of setting manually the focus maybe teach you quite a lot, right? Even if at the end the autofocus you particularly you don't need, still the manipulation of the camera it's a very important thing for photographers, no matter where they are in land or sea.
It is. It's good to understand, like the cameras are so automatic based these days, so you can literally, hold it up to your eye. And if you've got a good enough composition, you're going to get a well exposed in focus photo. But understanding why it's in focus and why it's exposed is so crucial to going from just a good photo to a great photo. So that fundamental, learning those fundamentals of how a camera works is so important. And because I started on a fully manual camera, I think, that it was a slower learning curve to better photos, but, ultimately it was a good base to build upon.
Yeah, because, today, I mean, in water is different than in the land, right? But because you need to have also the courage sometimes, to go to the middle of the ocean and to face the waves, right? And in land, you are relatively safe. I mean, depends which kind of photography you do, but yeah, if you,
Yeah,
but
for sure.
what you were saying, like the difference between like what anybody can do just to take a picture and to take a photo of, to do professional photography is totally different. But where we live today is in Instagram or social media world, where there are a lot of pictures that are taken with iPhones or equipment that are not professional. But I guess the professional, they know the difference. If you take a professional photographer, he can define, but the normal people is very difficult, right? And so that makes a bit harder for the professionals to differentiate themselves, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there was big separation back in the day because, like, when I first started, not everyone had a camera, and now everyone's got a camera in their pocket. So many more photos being taken, and you're right, the quality of those iPhone pictures, as far as Instagram's concerned, are quite good. If you're a professional, you can tell when a picture's taken on a GoPro or iPhone versus a DSLR. And it's quite obvious to a professional, but it might not be as obvious, but it's still, it's not so much about the quality of the camera. It's more about capturing a moment, seeing a moment. Like good photographers can see a moment. So I can be standing right next to someone and they're not seeing that moment. And, you know, I'm seeing the way the light hits. Like every day I'm a photographer every day for the last, 25 years, even when I haven't got a camera, or even if I spend a day where I don't have a camera in my hand, I'm seeing light and I'm taking photos, in the everyday world by just looking at the way the light's hitting a subject or the way the light's changing, going in and out of behind clouds or, creating shadows and then just the peak moments as well. So when you are in the water, everything's happens so fast when you're trying to photograph from the water. It's like really difficult, but you've got to nail your settings, nail your focus, but also find those little defining moments. And it doesn't really matter. You can give the guy the best camera in the world, but he might, if he's not skilled, he won't be able to take a decent photo with it. And same with the iPhone. You can give an iPhone to a really experienced photographer and he could take an award-winning photo. So it's really in the eye, like what you see and what you bring to it.
Your eye is already trained to see like the composition, right? How the picture should be. And of course, that is makes the difference between a pro and a normal person, right? But how does it work with you? You anticipate the shot, so you know where the surfer is going to be at a certain point. So you take a risk and you focus maybe on the few click in the future. So because you're projecting where things going, or how does it work? Secret formula for your
yeah, for sure. It's about like noticing, like I said before, like walking around every day and taking photos. Like every day I'm training to be a photographer by looking at the light. So it's the same with surfing. Like when I'm surfing, I'm like looking at the way a surfer will surf a wave, and even a certain surfer, like a longboarder, will be in a different part of the wave to a shortboarder at a different time. So yeah, preempting it, like you said, is crucial to be in the right spot, but also to just to be in the right spot and capture the right moment, and when to dive under the wave and when to like hold steady and risk it to get the shot. So there's no point risking yourself to get hit with a surfboard if you're just not going to get the shot. And by just experiencing and doing it day in, day out, it's like the 10,000 hour rule. It's so true for photography. You've just got to spend the time. And the more time you get out there, if you're a surfer, it helps a lot if you're shooting water, because, or even from the land, because you know what a surfer's going to do. When you see a section, oh yeah, he's going to pull up into the tube there, or he's going to go for a re-entry there, or he's winding up for an aerial. And a non-surfer was trying to photograph from the land or the water probably wouldn't be as aware of that. So they wouldn't be able to see what's coming. So I think, just when I'm surfing, and, I've surfed for pretty solidly since I was 15. So I'm 47 now. So that's a lot of years in the water. And, I'm watching surfing movies more so when I was younger, but I watch surfing movies a lot, and that helps with my photography. And I've worked with really high-end surfers to shoot video and photos. And, I'm learning so much with surfing as well by hanging around with them, but also knowing when that moment arises. And more than the surf action, I'm really jazzed on the light. So when the light's really good in the early morning and the late afternoon, I'm not as enthused if it's middle of the day sort of photos, unless I'm shooting under the surface. But on the surface, like, I just get so excited when the waves are even half decent, but the light is amazing. So at Noosa, where I live, like in the evenings along the Point Break there, we just get some amazing sunsets and amazing light. Clouds come over, rainbows come over, and I just like, if I'm surfing, I'm just wishing I had a camera. And if I've got a camera, I'm just the happiest guy out there. It's like, doesn't matter if it's 4 foot and barreling. I'm having more fun if the light's good. So
okay. That's the I like this perspective of light, and it's very interesting. And you live in a very good place, it looks like. So
Yeah, I mean, I do photography all over Australia and New Zealand, and I used to travel a lot to places like Maldives and Indonesia and that sort of thing. But these days, I travel for my commercial photography, which isn't necessarily surf photography. Surf photography is more of a thing that got me started in my photography career. So the first paycheck I ever got was a surfing photo in a longboard magazine, and I did, a fair bit of stuff for a couple of 2 or 3 editorial longboard magazines and a couple of brands and that sort of thing, and got a chance to extend my surf photography. But it was like it involved a lot of travel, and I just started to. I had a wife, and I started having a young family, and I just thought, I don't know if I want to sacrifice 9 months of a year out of a suitcase for the surf photography. So I opted to do commercial photography, and that's allowed me to travel a lot around Australia with my family. Yeah. We did it full time for 3 or 4 years and got to see so many places. But I still do surf photography, and I bring in my water and surf photography into my commercial assignments a lot as well. So works well.
It's like it's a part of your experience, right? And it's a part of the basement of the foundation of your experience. So then you can build on top of it whatever you want in terms of photography, commercial photography, whatever other projects. But going back to what we were saying before about your first paycheck, that was from a magazine. Or the surfers images on Surfer magazine that you saw before, and basically today for a surf photographer there are no more magazines, right? Very, 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 very few, and I guess they don't pay like they were used to pay in the past, right? Because as we said, there are many photographers out there. Cameras are quite accessible, like before they were not. Pictures are easy to take, while before there were films, right? How a photographer can survive in the modern era?
Yeah, you're right. Like back then, there was countless magazines in Australia and overseas that you could submit your photos to, and we were shooting on film. My first picture I'm talking about was a slide film shot on Velvia slide film. With a film camera, and I got a stack of photos back that day, and there was lots of cool tight action shots, and there was one that was pulled back, and I didn't really think much of it, and I sent them all in, and they picked that one that was pulled back, and it had a beautiful blue ocean, and a guy on a red longboard just pulled back with a headland behind him. And I didn't think much of it because in the 90s the whole thing was like tight action surf photography. And this one was like more of a landscape photo, and I didn't think much of it until it was printed in the magazine. I thought, oh wow, that's really cool. And it was like one of my photos, and I overlooked it. So that was just interesting. But yeah, there was a lot of opportunity with brands and I suppose magazines in the early 2000s, late 90s, and that all faded away when magazines went away. So it's just about diversifying. So now, instead of making money off magazines, photographers might be switching more to brands, or they might even be, a lot of photographers are actually hired by the surfers because they're their own media outlet. So a lot of professional surfers, they used to just get called up by the photographers, or the brand would send out a photographer to shoot their footage or shoot their photos. And now the surfer is more paying the photographer to, keep their content coming through social media. So a photographer can now switch from selling their pictures to a magazine to now maybe getting work directly off the surfer or surfers, and they pay the photographer. So a lot of like the top end guys, they travel full time with at least a filmer, sometimes a photographer as well, or one guy that's doing both. So I think the opportunities where you're getting your money from is a little bit different these days.
Totally different, and one thing is to sustain your life with photography, which becomes like relatively difficult, unless you bring a particular style or something that different. And again, it's very difficult because out there in social media, we see a lot of everything, basically, And what is the suggestion that would you give to young photographer today, in your opinion?
Well, if you're referring to the craft, like it's just putting in the hours. So committing to just photographing every day, especially if you're new to it, just getting out there every morning, every afternoon, no matter what the conditions, and trying to make something of it. So I think I did my most improvement when it was about 2008 to 2013. I set up a blog, and every single day I would get up at sunrise and shoot for the first hour and a half of light. And I would put those photos up on a website. And it was like in Coffs Harbour, which I used to live down in northern New South Wales in a little town called Coffs Harbour. And I made a commitment to do that and bring the surfers of that area photos that morning. I'd just go to a random beach and just either shoot from the water or shoot from the land. If there was no waves, I'd shoot landscapes, or most of the time there was some sort of wave. And I just made a photo nearly every day. There was hardly a day that I didn't make a photo that was reasonably pleased with. But it taught me to shoot in all sorts of conditions. So that was a way for me to get that consistency. I made a commitment to shoot every day, 5 days a week it was, every weekday, and no matter what conditions, and come up with something. So I think the consistency is something to get started with. Just learning your camera inside out. So it's like just second nature, not just relying on the automatic settings, learning from as many people as you can, asking for critique on your photos, feedback on your photos. As far as breaking into the industry, it's not like the old days. You're not submitting as much to magazines, although there are a few. So it's a good way to get recognized and get your name out there. It's not a really good way to make the money, but you've got to diversify and think of just different ways that you can monetize it. Like you're saying that the magazines are gone, but social media, there's so many photos, but there's so much more need for the photos. So back in the day, there was a lot of magazines, but they could only fit so many photos into a magazine per month. So there was a finite amount. Now with social media, like all these people, the surfers, and everyone's expected to put out like a new clip every week or a new photo every day. So the demand for photos, even though they're here today, gone tomorrow, but the demand for fresh photos constantly is only increasing. So even though there's more photos, there's more opportunity to utilize that. And then for the young photographers, respecting the fact that there's a bit of a culture of just giving away your stuff for free. And it's like there's so much energy and money and time that goes into your photography. And just because you get shared on whatever, a site or for a brand, that's not necessarily good enough payment for your energy. So just asking for payment and just respecting yourself from the start. Even if you're a beginner, if a brand wants to use your photo, well, then it's good enough for them. The best way of advertising for a brand is on social media now. So if they're saying it's just for social media, that's advertising flat out. So, just respect yourself and ask for some payment so you can keep going with it, because you're going to run out of puff if you're not getting, the energy's not getting returned in the way of finance.
Exactly. Visibility doesn't bring bread to the table, right?
It does not. Like a credit on the bottom of a photo doesn't pay my grocery bill. Like I don't care if you put my name at the bottom. It's like my kids don't get fed from a photo credit. They get fed from money, and it's just a reasonable thing to ask. So I think with the young ones, doesn't matter. Like if you got asked by someone that is promoting your stuff, well then they think it's good enough to promote your picture. Well then it should be you should get a little bit of a cut, like a little bit of a cut of what they're going to make potentially.
Plus, there is a job, that maybe, let's say, the normal people, means the man in the street, let's say, doesn't know, is that there is a job behind just taking a picture, that is the editing part. That doesn't mean changing how the picture was and transforming it into a totally different one. It's really like cropping, setting all the lights, and it takes time, even choosing one picture out of the ones that we took, right? It takes time. And I remember I do as a hobby concert photography, and I remember one day there was one magazine that called me up and was interested in certain pictures for a concert, and they say like, we are ready to pay you 50 picture, $50. I said, $50 per pictures? No, $1 per picture. And I said, it's, I can keep them for myself, because if you pay $1, for all the time it takes, the fuel to go. And the same thing is for a photographer, right? It's just like the time that we put behind the works. If we kind of compromise for visibility, which is still important, but it doesn't pay the rent, then it's affecting badly all the other colleagues, because then getting not paid or not getting paid is becoming something that we are used to, right? And so then the brands will expect everything for free, and that the world doesn't work like that, at least on our side of the of the trench, right?
Well, you just can't keep going. That's all. You just like you're not. I suppose it's just like you're not going to get anything out of someone sharing your picture. Like no one cares if your name's at the bottom or anything like that. And then, so yeah, it's just got to get paid. It's cool. It's like, and then they'll respect you more, because like if you give it up for free, they'll always expect it for free. So you're never going to get $1 off them ever. And then when they have got a job that they've got a budget for, they'll go and pay a photographer that demands the money, and you won't get that job. So if you give away for free, you'll have to give away for free forever for that brand anyway. So if you've done it in the past, just from today onwards, stop doing that, and start asking what the budget is. You don't have to like throw out a number. You can ask them what their budget is for photography to make it easy for you. I've got I'm going to do a couple of interviews. I actually teach a lot of water and surf photography through my online courses and Instagram, and I've got a interview set up with a guy that is going to shed a little bit of light on how to charge, and he's been in the industry for many years, and he's quite good at it too. So I'm just going to try and get him on there. And that could be a good thing for the beginner photographer anyway.
Yeah, that's a question that like every beginner has, like how much I should charge, how much my work is done, valued. And I agree with you, like on your suggestion of keep shooting, and I think also is a self-improvement, but also maybe you start as a surf photographer and you become like an ocean photographer, like waves, or waves, and you go for sunset, and then you find your way progressively in your shooting every day. So I think is that very, very important suggestion. Look, I don't want to ask you what is your favorite photo among all the one that you took, because I will not get an answer, but I will not, because I know that's impossible to choose. But let's talk about meaningfulness. There was a particular, I don't know, photo or a particular moment that you portrayed that was particularly meaningful for you as a person rather than as a professional.
There's a few. I think the one that comes to mind, because I'm all about a photographer that likes to be in the moment. So I like that question, because photography for me is like, once I've taken the photo, it's like, it's great, but I've sort of forgotten about it because I want to be in the moment. And so photography puts you in an amazing moment, especially if you're a water photographer. You're like, sometimes I'm shooting with a 15mm lens, which means I'm literally centimeters from the surfer as they go past me. So I'm in the tube with the surfer at times. So you're right in the moment. So that's the beautiful gift of photography, that it puts you in all sorts of places and all sorts of conditions. So I think one of the things that comes to me as like a favorite moment in photography was actually not in the water. It was actually out of the side of an airplane in Western Australia, in northwest Western Australia, and at a place called Shark Bay. And I knew that the landscape looked pretty good from above, so I found, it's a very small town, but I found a guy that would take me up in a plane, and it was this old rickety plane, just enough room for me to get in there with my camera and the side, and he ripped out the window and he took me over the coastline, which is just the most red dirt onto the most beautiful turquoise water, and just so many textures and color contrast looking down on it. And I was just like, for the first 10 minutes, I had him for about 45 minutes. But the first 10 minutes were just, I didn't even take a photo. I was just like looking out the window, just going, this doesn't even look like, planet Earth. It was just so vivid with the colors and the textures and like nothing I'd ever seen with my eye before. And yeah, I was just flying around for 10 minutes, just going, oh, this is amazing. This is amazing. And I just snapped into it. I thought, I better take some photos of this. So I got him to, find a spot that I love best. And I remember taking a few photos, and there was one particular time I just clicked the button. I knew the composition was right. I just came into view because you're sort of moving the whole time. Like in a helicopter, it's easier to shoot out of. And that's how I do most of my aerial photography, is a helicopter, because they rip the whole door off it and then they can hover there a lot better. Whereas a plane, you've got to circle the whole time. So you can't line up a shot as good. But there was one time where he just tipped on the wing side, and I just like looked down and I squeezed the trigger and just got the shot. And it's like one of my favorite shots as well. But it was a really good moment. I came back down to the ground buzzing from that experience. So yeah, I'll choose that one. There's plenty. There's like thousands of times in the water that have just taken my breath away, and water photography is still my favorite thing to do. But I just went with an aerial one with that one.
Thank you for sharing. And so you're talking about lens and equipment. What's your favorite equipment to use today? Nikon, and lens.
Yeah. So I shoot with Canon cameras, and I use Aquatech water housings, and I've used Aquatech water housings for over 20 years now. And they've been a really good support, and they've never leaked. So that's always the worry when you're taking your camera out into the water. And so to have a robust housing, so I use Aquatech housing, and I use the Canon R5, which is one of their newer, I suppose, mirrorless cameras. My favorite lens, I like all lenses. I really like the 50mm lens of the look it gives you, and my favorite lens is actually the 15mm lens, because like I said before, I've got to get right up in the moment to get the photo. So if I'm with a 15mm, it means that I've got to be like, almost touching the subject, almost touching the wave, and, right in there. So I have the most fun when I'm shooting with a 15mm lens.
Okay. 15 millimeter lenses. Nobody ever told you to get out of the way?
No one really told me to get out of the way. I more so tell the surfer, if they haven't shot with me before, so don't worry, just get as close as you can, because like I need it close to get the impact. And a lot of the time, luckily, I'm shooting with pretty decent surfers, so they can just put the board exactly where they want to put it. So I'm pretty cool with getting close to them. I've been very close to hit a few times, but nothing really bad.
I was joking, man, because obviously 15 is you need to be super close, so I mean
it's a couple of foot away, like, and within 1 to 2 meters it starts to look good. About 2 meters out to like 30 centimeters away.
And now, how many lenses you own? I guess like
a lot. Like, so a 15 to 35mm lens, and then I've got a 50mm lens, which is straight prime lens. I've got a 100mm lens, which is a macro lens for close-up photography. A 70 to 200, which is a sort of good standard lineup shoot. I've got a 300mm 2.8, a 400mm. What else have I got? I don't know, a few other ones, but yeah, I'm not so much of a gear guy, but I've covered everything from 15mm to 400mm. I don't really like shooting ultra long lens stuff. I like sort of more pulled back look, or getting in the water to get my close up stuff. So, and I've got like lots of flashlight. I use a lot of flash as well for my commercial photography, and sometimes in the surf as well.
talking with other surf photographers, like today, it seems that Canon is the right choice without doing advertising, but just like not because of the camera itself, but because of the lenses.
Yeah, correct. The lenses are really sharp. I think there's a lot of people adopting the Sony system, which looks pretty good to me. But I think once you're either Sony, Nikon, or Canon, they're all very good. It doesn't really matter which one you're using out of those three. You're going to produce, really good photos. So it's just that I got onto Canon very early, and the lenses, once you start accumulating the lenses, you don't want to change over. So, but I'm really happy with, especially since the new mirrorless cameras have come out with Canon, I love the R5. It's like such a quick camera, really fast focusing, fast motor drive. And it's just epic bit of kit. Makes it easier for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Talking about surfers, this is a question that I ask everyone on the show. In your life, you met a lot of surfers, some of them famous, some of them maybe not famous. Was there a meeting with one of them that was particularly meaningful for you?
Yeah, there has been many. I would say that I developed a really good relationship with a fella named Harley Ingleby, and I knew him early on. And he's a 2 times world champion longboarder, but he surfs all boards incredibly well. Surfs shortboards amazingly. He surfs finless boards, friction-free boards, everything like that. He surfs just beautifully with an amazing style. And he was, when I moved to Coffs Harbour, he just lived down the road from me. And yeah, I sort of grew. He was like already a good surfer. He was probably only about 17 at the time. And I was getting into photography, and I had an opportunity because his dad collects a lot of boards. Like his dad's house his rafters were just full of all these antique collector boards. And we, for a long time, ran a monthly article in Australian Longboarding magazine where he would just pull down one of those old boards from the rafters and surf it and give it a bit of a critique. And his dad, Mark Ingleby, wrote about that board's history, and Harley would just give a bit of feedback on how the board rode. And I'd just take the photos, normally from the water, but then I'd take pictures of the boards. And so we developed that project that went over probably 2 or 3 years, like different board every couple of months. And I also just photographed him a lot using his longboards, and then eventually did a video section, which ended up in a Taylor Still film called Intersection, where I filmed a part for him over it's probably about a 6 to 8 month period where we went around to local beaches and shot him surfing everything from Alaya boards to longboards to shortboards, barrels, tiny waves, everything, and mixed into a section, which was fortunately enough made it into one of Taylor Still's films. So that was a cool little relationship with Harley, just so committed to his surfboard, and now he designs surfboards and he's going along really well. So I was fortunate enough to develop a relationship with Harley, and it was really just a photographer-surfer relationship that worked well. In a small country town.
While you were talking, I was thinking about an interview that is going to be released in the same series of the one we are recording today. That is the 9th series, with the surf photographer Jimmy Metico. I don't know how to pronounce. He was there at the time. Tom Curran started to become like a very well-known surfer, and then later on in the years, world champion. And he was there when Tom Curran and Al Merrick were like both young, and they started to work together, and they brought a lot of success to each other. And one thing that he told me in the interview is that it's very important, for him to shoot, like what we said before, keep shooting, but also keep shooting even your neighbor. Because maybe you'll end up being a longboard world champion, right? And
That's
so
it.
those pictures that you have in the early days might become in 20 years from now some legendary picture. And so for him, shooting Tom Curren when he was like not the world champion Tom Curren, but just a very promising kid from surf perspective, then down years paid and allowed him to publish a book about those early years. So I think when you were talking about this project that you have done for 3 years, that is an amazing project, by the way, because it doesn't happen every day to have a father that has a surfboard collection and a kid that can surf. Those down the road, maybe in 20 years' time, will become such an iconic project, and you will publish a book out of it. You know?
I think it could easily be done into a book. Like it's just good. Like you said, like that guy that was shooting Curren, like that'd be super rare photos, because at the time before he's well known, hardly anyone would be taking photos of him. So in that era, those photos would be super rare. Once the Curren gets a name, there's like everyone's shooting him. So a lot of people got the same photos from the same session, all that sort of thing. But those would be really rare photos. So super valuable. Maybe the article is called Performance Art, so it's a really good title for a book as well. So maybe we should
a good idea.
Get together and do it. It'll be good. It'll be a good book.
Yeah.
They're all on slide film, those pictures, but they'd print well. That's for sure.
Okay, so we'll see. Maybe I gave you a good idea. You will come up with in the future. So just remember to credit me for the.
You have to get a cut.
No. I don't want the cut. I just want visibility.
That'll do.
And going back to today, what are your projects that you're currently working on, or future projects that are in your to-do list? What are you cooking for us?
Yeah. At the moment, I'm heavily focusing on my teaching other people. It's been so rewarding. Over the last 3 or 4 years, I've developed an online water photography course and a general photography course. But so just strengthening that group with their knowledge with water and surf photography. It's so cool. Like these guys and girls come to me daily with their photos and how they're improving, and I'm just like giving little tweaks or making new videos to help them progress. So that's my number one pursuit at the moment with my photography. I mean, I've a lot of times taken up with the commercial photography, but when I've got time, like over the next month, I don't do much commercial photography in January. So I'm going to be heavily focusing on making more content for the members of my water and surf photography courses. So that's a huge project. I want to start doing a personal project as well, because one of the members of the course, a good friend of mine, and he shoots for Surfers Journal. He's encouraging me to like just shoot something for yourself, not always shoot something for a client. And I have done that for like the last 15 years, to tell you the truth. So I'm trying to hash out an idea for 2024 where I just lock into a theme or an idea to shoot just for me with no client, no money involved, just like shoot for the love of it. So I'll be pursuing that. I haven't really nailed down a concept yet to share, but when I do, I'll let you know.
We're gonna finish with we're gonna finish our interview with a short Q&A session. So please answer the first thing that comes up to your mind. Okay. The best surfboard that you ever rode.
My favorite surfboard is a Mini Simmons. It's probably not the best performing surfboard, but I've got a 5.0 Mini Simmons that's got timber twin keel fins in it. But why it's so special, I've had it for like over a decade. Why it's so special is my brother actually made it for me, and it was the first surfboard. So we got 2 blanks and we both made Mini Simmons boards out of them. And he's a lot more crafty with his hands. He's like good with tools and stuff like that. I'm a bit more creative. So he hand shaped them. I filmed the process, and he made my first not my first board, my first Mini Simmons style board. And I just loved it. It goes so fast in a straight line, and I have so much joy just surfing it, and got good memories because we spent a fair bit of time making those boards. So that's my favorite board, but not the best performing board.
So the second question was your favorite shaper. So I guess
not Joe, not my brother. He's not the best shaper. He did a really good job, but the board still works today, and it's like 10 years old. But my favorite shaper is a fellow named Ed Sinnott, who's been shaping for nearly 50 years, and he lives in Byron Bay. And I think he started his shaping career on the south coast of New South Wales, but he shapes for a brand called Ed Sinnott Surfboards. And there's something special about his boards. And I've been surfing his boards for probably 10 years. And I don't know, it's like the board looks beautiful. They're built to last, everything like that. But there's just a special mana in them that he infuses. Like, he's a really good guy, really switched on. He's got a lot of heart and got a lot of love for surfing, and that comes into the craft somehow. Once again, you just look at the board and it's just another surfboard. And I go and I try another surfboard. I buy one off the rack, and it's just like, it's just not the same. And I go back to Ed's boards, and they're just magic. So whatever he shapes me has just been a dream. So Ed's in it.
Personal question: your favorite song or kind of music?
Okay, my favorite song is from the Celibate Rifles. It's a song called "Dream of Night," and oh man, I love it. Damien Lovelock, if you don't know him, he was in he got his songs into a lot of surfing movies, Jack McCoy movies and stuff like that. But the Dream of Night, it's just a song from the 90s. So I suppose it gets me back into my teenage years. But I like all styles of music, folk music these days a lot of the time. But that was more sort of surf punk rock, I suppose. Celibate Rifles.
I like that. Favorite surf spot?
My favorite surf spot would be my local Point Break, which is with Noosa Heads, but particularly Tea Tree Bay, which is the second last point out, furthest out. And it's just a beautiful right-hand point break, and it gets crowded, but like, I just walk out there, and the walk out there through the National Park of Noosa is just absolutely beautiful. And even before I've jumped off the rock, I'm so happy because I've had that experience. So if I get waves on top, it's a bonus, and I normally do. So it's good.
Favorite surfer of all time?
Oh, look, for different reasons. I mean, Kelly Slater comes to mind. It's like a bit of an obvious answer, really, isn't it? But like, just doing what he does at over 50 years old, and just his pure commitment to surfing is unrivaled. And I've got to say, every time he opens his mouth, I'm listening to him. Like, he articulates it well. Changed surfing for the better, I think. Just watching him grab rail under one of those, pipe bombs or Tahiti ledges is just, I don't know. How can you go past Kelly Slater? Just Kelly Slater.
Kelly Slater is the GOAT, so
He is the GOAT. I like so many surfers, like style-wise, Rob Machado, Craig Anderson, Asher Pacey's amazing from Australia. He's a really good guy and incredible surfer, but we'll just go with the GOAT, hey?
Yeah, let's go with Kelly. The last question is a little bit unusual. I would like to know your best relationship advice.
Best relationship. Well, I've been very happily married since for 25 odd years, and
you can give us a good one.
Yeah, I've got an amazing relationship with my wife, and I think that it's just been present and fully listening. I think, not that I'm the best listener, but I think that's a key. I'll tell you what, where relationships go wrong, I'll go a different path with this answer. I think where a lot of people like part ways and break up, and they end up blaming the other person. They end up blaming the spouse, or he was too lazy, or she was like this and that. And they've got so many reasons why the other person stuffed up the relationship. But instead, not many people look at themselves. So even if it looks like they're in the wrong for some reason, you've got to look at yourself. So why are they behaving that way? It's normally a reflection of something you're doing. So I think people need to turn the mirror on themselves, and there'd be less breakups. And I think that people would develop stronger relationships if, even in situations where it's obviously the other person's fault, if you flip the mirror on yourself and just go, where could I be better? Where am I going wrong? Or why are they reacting like that? So more so, I think good relationship advice is to look inward rather than blame outward. How's that? I'll go with that.
Yeah, that works for a romantic relationship, but also for friends, right? So
For friends, for sure. Yeah, like if anyone's triggering you, it's normally a reason to look at yourself as well. So, even if it's a person you just met down the street today and they trigger you in some way, it's normally something that it's a gift. You've got to look at it yourself, not say, oh, that guy was a bastard or whatever. You just got to go, oh, okay, why is that triggering me? So, yeah, just looking inward, I think.
No, definitely. I totally agree with you. Thank you so much for being on the show. And I look forward to talk to you very, very soon.
No worries, mate. Love the show. Keep it charging on.
Thank you. I will. Ciao.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Hi, it's me again. I hope you enjoyed our today's episode. If you want to know more about us, please follow www.thetempleofsurf.com and all our social media. Mahalo!